Geez, football Sunday nights, and then she says, but Al, it's at the Beaver Creek Golf Club and a free meal. So here I am. We are honored. We are honored to be here, and we want to thank you and your group for asking us and speaking a few minutes. She said, Al, you have about 15, 20 minutes. I told her, it takes me 20 minutes just to say hello, Sheila. I don't know if I can do that. But she mentioned Kelly Cox, who is, we kind of call it two thorns in the rose. We kind of do a lot of speaking engagement. We come up with the idea, and Kelly puts it to work for us in that. So I've been with Honor Flight Dayton, as Sheila mentioned. I've been with the Honor Flight organizations for 8 years. I started in 2006. Honor Flight nationally got started in 2005. And when they first started, it was just going to be a couple of folks, World War II vets, going on an honor flight out of Springfield, Ohio here. In fact, that first year in 2005 and in the first part of 2006, they were flying small planes, 4-seater aircraft out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And they had done that very first flight in May of 2005. They had 6 4-seater aircraft. And they put 2 World War II vets in the back seat. So that very first flight had 12 World War II vets flying to D.C. They came back. Those individuals told their buddies, hey, I just had a free trip to D.C. and it was a great, and they fed me. They gave me a shirt. They told their buddies, and they signed up. Then it started growing. So from that very first year, it was around 137 in 2005. And to date, we have taken across the nation over 120,000 World War II and Korean vets and Vietnam vets to see their memorial in D.C. Okay, so just a little history about me. We always get the question how you got started, and it was just hearing about it. So I heard about it in 2006. I retired from the base. Was in the service with the Army. Graduated from the University of Minnesota, just down the street from Stillwater, where these pictures we saw before. So I just left Minnesota 2 weeks ago, and I wish I would have known about that. So I definitely asked Dave to give me the address. I'm going to go back and visit them definitely in the spring and so forth. Anyway, so after the service and graduating from the University of Minnesota in engineering, I went to work for the Navy for a few years, but I wanted to get back to the Midwest, so I went back to the Ohio area, and so I worked with the Air Force for about 28 years. And I retired in 2003, and I knew there's so many things you can get involved with once you retire. And one of the things I want to do is get involved with my church. So I became very active in my church, but I didn't want to get involved with any nonprofit, spending a lot of time for a while. Then I heard about this Honor Flight program, and I says, what better way to honor our veterans? So I joined them in 2006 and been with them for 8 years. In 2007, I took over the Dayton operations, running all the flights out of Dayton. And then in 2008, we started seeing other, actually before that, 2007, we started seeing other cities calling up saying, hey, I hear what you guys are doing in Dayton, Ohio. Dave Cameron up in Detroit called up and says, well, what can I do to honor our guys? And I said, well, here's, not me, but what the guys, what the organization said, here's what we're doing. You know, we're taking these vets, and the thing is, one of their policy is they're not paying a dime. This trip is going to be free to all those veterans. The guardians that are going along with them on these trips are going to pay their own way. So Dave Cameron started in Detroit. Another guy down in Carolinas heard about it, and he started something there. So it started blossoming, and the Honor Flight Network was formed. Then in 2008, we decided that we needed to start helping these other cities out across the nation that wanted to get something started. So there's 3 of us. One took 7 states, the other one took 8. I took 25 states. And so what I was doing, being from Minnesota, there's a lot of vets up in that general area, so I said, I'm going to help out the Midwest and the New England state. So from 2008 to the present, I still go across the country and help out other cities. I was just in Milwaukee 2 weeks ago, then went over to Minneapolis and did a flight out of Milwaukee. And so that's my background. And Larry joined us, I think it was in 2009, Larry? Larry heard about it or saw something on the news and signed up, came up and actually started helping me out with the data collection we were doing up in the Springfield area. And then Kelly was a substitute teacher in Beaver Creek. They took as their active endeavor to try to raise money for Honor Flight. And so these school kids, what they raised, over $20,000. Close to $23,000, selling cookies and dinners and things like that, and raised enough for sponsoring 2 Honor Flights. So that's how Honor Flight got started. Next card, Charlie. So this is basically our mission. Our mission is to take vets. Primarily, we started off with World War II vets, and then in 2013, we opened it up to the Korean. Since we've been doing that in this general area since 2005, the number of vets, World War II vets that we have left on our list has been dwindling. But we want to continue, so we opened it up to Korean vets. And then actually in January of this year, we opened it up to Vietnam vets. Now, primarily based on age, we're going to take the World War II vets first. If they sign up, they're going to go in the World War II category, we'll take them. If we have empty seats on the plane, then we go to the Korean, and then we'll go to the Vietnam. The only exception to that is we have a program called TLC. TLC to us is their last chance. So many individuals are maybe under hospice care, don't have much longer to live. So they will go right to the top of the list, and they're going on our next flight. In fact, our last flight we just had in August, we had 3 TLCs. One was a Vietnam vet. He passed away 2 weeks after our flight. But it meant so much to them to see their memorial that they wanted to go. And so obviously they're going to be our top priorities. So that's what we're talking about, TLCs and so forth. How big is Honor Flight today? When we started, as I said, it was right here locally. Now Honor Flight, the network, is in approximately 35 to 40 states and about 140 active hubs. Ohio alone, we have 6 active hubs that are flying. Okay, next one. So let's just take you on a general journey of what we do. This is a long, long day for these World War II vets, the Korean and the Vietnam. You know, most of these guys now, the youngest you could be if you were 17 and are eligible to be declared as a World War II vet, which is December 31st, 1946. So if you were 17 at that day and went into service, you could be 86 years old and be eligible on this trip if you went in legally. Now we know a lot of World War II vets lied about their age, and we've had some that are 15, 16 years old that went in. You could be 17 if your parents signed for you, but we know there's other ones. So legally, you could be 86 years old. The oldest I've ever taken was out of La Crosse, Wisconsin, doing a charter flight where we're taking over the whole plane. This was in 2008. The guy was in a nursing home, and he was 103 years old. Get this, he had 2 brothers that served with him at the same time in World War II. One lived in Montana, the other one lived in La Crosse. We made arrangements for the guy in Montana to get into La Crosse so all 3 of those boys could go together. So we took the 103-year-old and his 2 kid brothers. One was 86 and the other was 88 years old. Real quick story about that. You know, it was a tough time for him. I mean, it started off really good. The daughter went as a guardian. And we went through the day, and as we went through the day, he was really getting restless. And he started to be combative. In fact, when we got off the charter plane at night, he was up in first class, and he was the last one off, and the flight attendants were trying to get him off from his chair into a aisle wheelchair just to get him off the plane. And he started swinging, and he's thinking back, oh, they're trying to steal my wall and stuff. But when we got off that plane, his daughter, who went as a guardian, just hugged me, and she didn't know if she did the right thing, and she was just in tears. And I said to her, you know, he may not know what happened, but we all know. You know what happened. His 2 younger brothers know. But this was, we were just so proud of her. So we went back to the nursing home, and I called her up 2 days later, and I says, how's your dad doing? She says, the nurses at the nursing home said he had a couple of tough days, but that particular morning he said, when can I go again? So they're getting something out of it. And as I was telling Sheila earlier, we don't know. There's so many things that are going in these vets' minds of what may have happened. You just don't know. So you treat them like they are 100% there with us throughout the day. First off, are there any vets in the audience? I know Bob Emerson is, and a couple other. Okay, very good. How about, do we have any that have gone on an honor flight? You've gone on one, sir? When did you go?
Pardon?
When did you go on an honor flight?
Where did I?
Yeah. 4 or 5 years ago. Very good. So we have a banquet at the end of the year. Hopefully you're getting a postcard. So we invite everybody that's ever gone from day 1 in 2005 to come to our banquet at the end of the year. And hopefully you're getting, if you're not getting postcards, I want to see you before we leave today. Anyway, I appreciate it, and I want to thank all you folks out there for your service. Okay, so back to the day. Very long day. We get to the airport. We tell the guardians they're going to escort the vets to get there by 3 o'clock. The vets, we tell them you don't need to be there till 4. Guess what? Vets have waited 60 years or so to go on this trip. You think they're going to fall asleep and miss the alarm clock? They're going to be at the airport before we get there. They'll be greeting us when we get there sometimes, you know. But they are so anxious that they'll be there, a lot of them. So in the past, what we've done is we've been fortunate out of the Dayton airport here that we can get a commercial flight out of Dayton directly into Baltimore, BWI, and fly back that night. We'd have enough time. So we'd leave here at 6:20 in the morning, get into the Baltimore area, and then leave there at 9:30 at night and get back to the Dayton area. So we had enough time to see all the different sites we're going to. Southwest bought out AirTran last year. Changed the schedule. So of us going with the AirTran on Saturdays like we've done in the past, this year we had to switch over and go on Fridays. However, just recently they're changing their flight schedule again. So this fall we will not have enough time in DC to see all the things we wanted to for these vets. So we're going to go charter. We're actually renting a plane. Most of the flights that I do across the United States are charter, where we take over the whole plane. So this is Dayton's first one. Next Saturday, taking 100 vets. They're taking them to DC, and we're going to go on a charter airplane, 149 seats. About 100 of them are going to be World War II vets and Korean vets and a few Vietnam. And the rest are going to be medical. We always travel with medical individuals, either doctors, nurses, or whatever. We will never take a trip without that. We don't advertise that we're providing medical service, but that's their profession. They're going as a guardian, and they will help us out for legal reasons. So we will always have that. So we're going to do our first charter next Saturday. So our first stop when we leave Dayton Airport at 6 a.m. next Saturday, we're going to land in DCA Reagan Airport at 7:20. When these guys come off that plane in Reagan, there will be a group of individuals, volunteers, and the announcement would have been made throughout the airport saying, we've got World War II vets and Korean vets coming in on gate so-and-so, so there will be people greeting them. So as they come off the jetway, and they'll hear music and people in a gauntlet on both sides just greeting these vets, it's the first homecoming they've ever been thanked for. So can you imagine the emotion that they have coming off that plane? And we haven't even started the day yet. So from that, after that, we get at Reagan, we have plush buses waiting for us, and our very first stop will be the World War II Memorial. When we get to the World War II Memorial, very first thing we do, bathrooms. Yeah, we know where the bathrooms are all through that DC area, you know. And that's in our agenda. I don't show, I got the abbreviated one here, but yeah, just go here, bathroom break. Go over here, bathroom break. In fact, someday I'm gonna do a coffee book table on just the bathrooms in DC. Just love that. But so anyway, so we go to the bathroom, and then what we do with the World War II Memorial, we do a flag ceremony. So we tell the vets, get to the bathroom, we're going to meet at a certain location, and then we're going to gather them all up to have a group photograph. And when we do the group photograph, we are going to have a flag ceremony. We always will take a flag of a fallen comrade, and we'll pay tribute to, there was over 16 million that served during World War II, and over 400,000 lost their life. So we are going to pay tribute to those Ohio veterans along with the flag of a fallen comrade. And what we do is have a moment of silence for those individuals, and then we'll play taps. And then we'll place that flag of that fallen comrade on a wheelchair, and we will then parade it in front of those vets as they're saluting, and we'll take that wheelchair and that flag along with a photograph of that individual and place it at, in this particular case, the Ohio pillar. And we'll leave it there for an hour and a half that we're there so other vets can go up and get pictures with those individuals. So it's a very, very, very touching thing. After we get done with the World War II Memorial, we're back on the bus, and then our next stop is going to be over by the Korean Memorial. When we stop at the Korean Memorial, we're going to see 3 different memorials. We're going to visit the Lincoln Memorial, the Korean Memorial, and the Vietnam Memorial. And we'll discuss with those individuals. Vietnam Memorial, a lot of people don't know this, is divided up in 3 parts. The wall was dedicated in 1982, but there was a lot of controversy when they built that wall. When they built that wall, people said, well, that's not a Washington Monument, that's not the Lincoln Memorial, they need to do something different. So in 1984, they dedicated the statue of 3 individuals. They're dressed in the Vietnam gear that we wore, carrying an M16, a 45, and an M60, or an M60 machine gun. And these 3 statues are kind of up on a hill overlooking the wall as if they're taking care of their buddies that are fallen. On that wall are 58,299 names. 58,299 names. On that wall also are 8 women. All the women's names are on there are nurses that served during Vietnam. And the third part of the Vietnam Memorial is dedicated to the women that served in the military as nurses. So there's those 3 parts make up the Vietnam Memorial, but most people think of the wall. Okay? So we'll see that, and then we'll go over and see the Korean Memorial. Korean Memorial is one of the most famous and one of the most popular stops, and what you see there are 19 soldiers going across this rice field, and alongside them is this highly polished black granite wall with over 2,400 etchings of individual supply and support people that supported the wall. So here you have the active military going across along with the supply and support people along their side watching over those 19. Those 19 are made up of the 4 branches. There's 13 of the Army, and there's 3 Marines, 1 Air Force, and 1 Navy. Okay? And why 19? Well, I think the original designer wanted to have 38, but because of the size of the property they gave them, he wanted to still maintain the size of those statues at a little over 7 feet. So he put 19 with the highly polished wall on a sunny day. You're going to see the reflection of those 19. And then twice 19 is 38. So the other significance of 38, that's the number of months that the Korean War was fought between 1950 and 1953. So that's another very popular spot. One of our most popular ones because there's a lot of shade and benches around it that they can sit down and really reflect. At the World War II Memorial, it's kind of out in the open. So when we're there in the summertime, it gets pretty darn hot, pretty humid stuff. So it kind of affects how the individuals are going to enjoy it. How they're going to enjoy it. So that's the next step. After that, we get back on a bus, and now we head up toward the Air Force Memorial. At the Air Force Memorial, I love it up there because it's off. How many has been to D.C. and seen the memorial? So you know that the Air Force is kind of off by itself up there. And another nice thing is you can't lose the vets. You know, some of these other places we're worried about and where they're going and all that. When you go to the Air Force, it's out there by themselves up there. It's actually really neat. It's up on a hill, and it has three spires reaching to the sky. The highest one's 270, the next one's 240, the shortest one is 203 feet. So different heights. And when they're up there underneath those spires, and in the center of those 3 spires is the Air Force emblem. That's the star. And that star is worn on our airplanes, and all the enlisted individuals will have that on their uniform. But when you're there, you can overlook the Pentagon, and you can see the Capitol and the White House and places like that. So it's a nice spot. The other thing I like about it, bathrooms. It's probably the nicest bathroom place that you can go is at the Air Force. And this is the place where the women can go in and out. The men are going to be standing because it's such a long line for the guys here, but the women, so that's one of our favorites. Then after we get to have our lunches up at the Air Force Memorial, one of our most popular spots is the Arlington National Cemetery. So when we go to the Arlington National Cemetery, as we're driving through, we go past Section 60 where most of our heroes from Afghanistan and Iraq are being buried today. So we will point that out to our fellow veterans that are on board. And then we go up to the amphitheater where the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers are. Now there's more than one Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We don't have a lot of time to go into it, but the big one that you see is a 60-ton Colorado marble block, and that's on top World War I. Then down below that at the ground level are 3 more crypts. One on the left-hand side is World War II. The one on the right-hand side is, that was Korean on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, as you're facing it, is the World War II, and the one in the center is Vietnam. Vietnam, they had decided to have the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in 1973, but based on technology, they thought that they would be able to identify that individual. So between 1973 to 1984, they identified all the remains they had in Hawaii that were given down there for the individuals, and they identified them all except for one. Now you could say, how come they couldn't identify him if you only had one? It's because of all the missing in action we had during that time frame. So they interned him in 1984, and in 1998, the advancement of technology with DNA, the family who thought their son was in there petitioned with the government to exhume him. So in 1998, they exhumed him. He was identified as Lieutenant Michael Blassie from St. Louis, Missouri. So his family elected to have his remains sent to the Jefferson Barracks Cemetery outside of St. Louis. And based on technology, we will probably never have another tomb of the unknown soldier. And out of respect for the Vietnam veterans, that tomb was sealed up. So you will see, if you're ever in D.C., you'll see 4 tombs there, only 3 of them will have remains. And the other thing you'll see on that big block of World War #1 are 12 simple words. Here rest in honor, glory, an American soldier known but to God. So it is very, very touching ceremony. Everybody that visits there, and I visited over 200 times in the last 8 years, and it's still a remarkable place to see the sentinels out there. And a lot of times we'll make arrangements with one of the sentinels that's on duty that will come out and speak to our vets. And it's really, really neat to have that happen. So that's the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And then after that, we just go down the road a little bit to the Marines Memorial. And it's not, a lot of people think of it as the Iwo Jima Memorial, even though, because it has the statue of those 6 boys up on top, it actually is the Marines Memorial, dedicated to all the battles they fought from 1775 to the present. So around the base of that 10-foot base, in gold lettering, will be the names of those major battles that the Marines have fought in. And to have individuals that have gone with us that fought on Iwo Jima in February 1945, I can't tell you what it means to the rest of us that are escorting these individuals, saying, a Navy guy saying, I was on the ship when those guys went to on February 19th. Or the Marines that went on board that island there. And when he climbed the top of Mount Suribachi on February 19th, 1945, thinking the war was over because they reached the top, it wasn't over. They fought for another number of days. It was a total of 36 days they were on that island. Of those 36 days, they had over 25,000 casualties, and over close to 7,000 more fatalities. To give you some idea how fierce that fighting was in those 36 days, the Marines gave out 84 Medals of Honor during World War II. Of those 84 Medals of Honor, the highest honor you could get in the service, 27 of those 84 were given out to individuals that fought on that island during those 36 days. Marines were island hopping and doing that all through the war. So we'll go into these kind of details when we got the vets and talking about the different play. So it's another very popular play. By that time, we've been feeding them all through the day too. We've been having the lunch, we gave them breakfast. Now one of the big things is towards the end of the day, around this time now, we're talking 5 o'clock. Left at the airport, we were at the airport at 3 o'clock. Now it's around 5 o'clock. So we stop at it's called the Country Steak and Buffet. And this is a nice place where they can just sit down, just kind of like you're doing here. The Guardians take care of the vets, feed them, get whatever they want. We do caution the vets, though, that this is a buffet. You can't take your chair and move it up to the buffet line. You have to stay at the tables. We have laws, we have rules and stuff. But we take care of them, treat them as kings and queens during that day. But this is the chance where they can sit back and relax. I had one time, it was a trip I was doing out of Richmond, Virginia. And we got all the buses loaded, the 3 buses we were taking, and had all the buses loaded, and we're still missing the vet and the guardian. So I asked the guy, one of the guys, where's your vet and guardian? He says, he's still in. So I went in there. He was on his 4th piece of pie, and the guardian is sitting like this. Are you about done, Joe? So they loved that. So now we've had that. Now it's time to get back to the airport. So we're about 15 minutes away from Reagan. We're working with TSA. About 2 years ago, TSA says if you're an honor flight, and you're doing a charter flight, like we're doing on this coming Saturday, and you got your badge on, they just check you off the manifest and we go right through security. The vets, when we first started, had to take their shoes off, their belts off, and half the guys lost their pants. And then they're trying to figure out whose belt is this, and so then we'd have the guys stand up before we board the plane. Okay, stand up so we can see whose pants fall, so we can see who's in. So that was a big hassle. And you can imagine, half these guys had metal in them. And trying to get through those metal detectors. It was just unbelievable. Now TSA is working with us, and if you're on an honor flight, charter, boom, right on through. Take the water, all that kind of stuff. So the TSA has been really working with us. Then we return, like I said, to get through the airport. Now it's time to head back home. So we're on the plane coming back from Reagan, coming back to Dayton. Got about an hour and 30-minute flight to come back. After the services of the flight attendants, plane gets up, levels off, the seat sign comes off. We get on the microphone, just like this, and we say, hey guys, did you have a good trip? Yeah, it was really nice. But how about when you guys were overseas or in the service station someplace, was there anything you really look forward to? And obviously the guys are going to say, mail call. You know, they didn't have Skype and all that stuff that we have today, but mail. Getting a letter from mom, like Sheila was writing her son when he was a Marine in the service, getting mail from back home, a goodie package or something like that. They said, that's what we really look for. We say, guess what, guys? We're having mail call on the plane for every one of you guys. When we first started doing this, we were working with the schools in local areas. And we got kids to write them in general. They're generic letters. Dear veteran, we love you, thank you for your service, and all that kind of stuff. I started a hub in 2008 out of Chicago. And one of the board members' daughter was a school teacher and says, well, how about, are you contacting the family members? I said, well, no, we never had time, we don't know how to do that. Well, on the application, it says, point of contact in case of emergency. She says, let me see what we can do. So on that flight, she went to that point of contact. And the point when she was calling said, don't tell the vets. And so she said, start calling people and just get in writing letters. What a hit. You know, not only getting letters from school kids, but getting them from your family members, unbelievable. A couple of quick stories on this thing. So every hub is doing it across the United States now. Every time we do a flight, everyone, I guarantee, was probably doing it. And one of the ones, a couple I love, the first one was, the guy gets this letter and says, Al, look at this letter. It was from his doctor. His doctor says, I hope you have a great trip, and by the way, when you get home, you still owe me 50 bucks. The other one, at the other end of that spectrum, this guy is crying. So I go and he says, Al, you got to read this to me. So I read it to him. It starts off, Dear Dad, I know we haven't talked in 15 years, but I want you to know you've always been my hero. This individual is in his senior years. And now he's getting a letter from his son he hasn't talked to. Can you imagine what that meant to him? It opened up that communication chain that's been dead for 15 years. This flight, these honor flights, mean so much to these individuals. There's little parts of this that we never hear about, these letters that they get. They've never talked about the war. And one of the things we encourage them is, when you get back home, let your sons and daughters and your grandkids know what you did. You're not going to read about this in the school books. You're going to find out about it from you. I don't care where you served, if it was overseas or in the States. You did your part. You didn't pick where you're going. My dad was a World War II vet. He served in the Navy. I don't know what he did. He passed away in 99. And I know a little bit, but I don't know. And I really wish I knew about this kind of stuff beforehand to ask. So we strongly encourage them, go out and find out what it is. We had one Marine, another Marine, and the lady called back, and she actually was from Florida. It was on another trip. And she called back and said, Al, when we got off the plane that night, he couldn't go home. We gave him all the disposable cameras. He couldn't go home until he went to a Walmart and had his pictures developed that night. She says, Al, he won't stop talking about it now. I says, well, get the camcorder going. You know, record this, because he's not going to be saying this for many more years. Get that recorded, okay? And the other thing we'd like to do is break up the ice as soon as possible. You know, these guys are coming there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Most of them aren't traveling with family members, but we want to make them feel as comfortable as possible. So we start joking with them, talking about the different services and Navy and stuff. But this one time I was on this trip, and we're coming back from Dayton, and we're on the airplane, and I'm kind of like sitting where Sheila is, and there was this guy here, and then my good buddy was sitting right here. And he'd been talking to this guy, and he says, Al, this guy is a Marine. I was Army now. So this guy was a Marine. So I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, oh, Couldn't get into the Army, huh? Not too smart for a short guy and a big Marine sitting in front of me that was active duty. He turned around, looked me in the eye and said, no, IQ was too high. So now we get off the plane, we're back home in Dayton, and with Dayton Airport, if you're familiar with it, they have 2 elevators. And we always use an escalator if you're a walker, but we start off this day and we're taking 100 vets this coming Saturday, so we're taking 51 wheelchairs. We may start off with about 30 in the wheelchairs. By the end of the day, most of them rent. The other thing, we encourage the vets and we tell the guardians, get them in the wheelchair. If they walk with a cane, or if they feel like they're getting drowsy or something, get them in a wheelchair. Because once we get them in a wheelchair, they're safe for us. We don't have to worry about them falling. It's the guys that are walking we're worried about. And we also tell them, if you get in a wheelchair, guys, these are chick magnets. When you go around and you go to the World War II Memorial and somebody's pushing you, the girls will swarm you. You know, they want to get your picture with a guy in a wheelchair. So, and then we also tell the guardians, these are for the vets, not for the guardians. So they got stuff like that. So now anyway, we're back there and we get at the Dayton Airport and there are 2 elevators. So we can only put 2 wheelchairs in an elevator. So it's going to take us time. What we want to do is get all the vets together and let them go down the ramp and out to the past TSA, past security, and go to the family where we got a lot of people waiting for them. And the military, active duty military, Bob from Right Pat, they said, what can we do to help out? So when we first started, we had maybe 5 or 6 active duty military in their uniform would come out to try to greet the guys. And what we would do is get them gate passes. And the problem is security closes at 8:30, so those guys would have to get there early. Guys and gals would have to get there early to get gate pass, because we want them at the gate before they meet their family to meet the active duty. Now we have close to 250 to 300 on every one of our flights. So they're there at 8:30 or so, and they get through the gate, through the security, and they're up there waiting till 10:30, 11 o'clock, whenever our plane goes. But when those vets come off the plane and they see active duty military and go through that gauntlet, it is just an uplifting thing. So then we get them all down below and down by where the old Cinnabon used to be before we get them out to their family. So out in front of the, if you were familiar with the airport, out where the ticket counters are, that's where we'll have the family on both sides, and we'll have Knights of Columbus, different groups and stuff greeting those people. But what happens to the military, the active military, they'll form 2 lines and they will lead our vets out to their families. What we say, we have the active duty heroes escorting yesterday's heroes back to their family. In fact, we call in front of the ticket counters the honor corridor coming down. So here they are, and a lot of times we'll have the band of flight. Air Force band of flight will be out there to help us. We'll have bagpipes, things like that we'll do it to escort them in. So this is just going really, really nice. Dayton is really building. The community here is really, really building. So we have them coming out there for that. And we may have close to 500 to 1,000 people. We just don't know, because this is going to be our first charter. So what I want to show you is just a brief little movie. Oh, sorry, before I do that, Sheila talked about what she did for her dad. And this is a program we call Honoring Yesterday's Heroes. When we first started off with this, we'd go to speak at different groups like this, and an individual would say, oh, geez, my dad, my mom, they're passed away, there's no way that they can go. He says, you know what, if you give us a picture, a 5x7 picture of them, hopefully in their uniform, we'll take it with us. And we'll take it to that particular memorial, World War II, Korean, or Vietnam. Or if we know that they were a Marine, we'll take to the Marines Memorial, the Air Force Memorial. And we'll set up an easel, which we have right over on the side here. And we take an American flag along with that picture of that individual, along with the plaque on top of it that talks about honor flag. And we will take that with their memorial. This happened to be, I said I've been doing this for 8 years. Last fall I said, you know, it's time to honor my dad. So in April of this year I took my dad's picture. So this is my dad with the flag, and he was a World War II vet, so we have that. We do that also for the Korean vets and the Vietnam vets. Okay, we'll do that at that particular memorial that it's appropriate. So we'll take that along, and we'll give that picture along with the 5x7 that they gave us to take, give that back to them, and along with a certificate saying, honoring yesterday's heroes, honor flight Dayton recognized so-and-so, and he was honored with a salute by the attending veterans during a formal ceremony that I talked about earlier. In addition to the flag was displayed in tribute to that individual. And that's what Sheila was talking about that we did for her dad earlier. And we do that. We're the only ones that do that. So if you have a loved one, Larry Blackmore here is our focal point. When we first started doing it, he was doing maybe 5, 6 pictures. Now, every time we go, he's taking anywhere from 30 to 60 pictures. And we do this for other individuals across the United States. We did a speaking engagement one time, and this individual from Arkansas said, I would like to do this for my siblings and my kids. So he asked for 11 copies, and we did it on a November flight, and he gave them to him as Christmas presents last year. So as many copies as you want, we are going to give you that free. We are honored. We are honored to do that for your loved one. Now, as I said, we started off, it was individuals that had passed away. But there are so many cases where individuals are maybe under hospice care or dementia or Alzheimer's that it is just not right for them to go. But we want to honor him along with giving that back to the family, so we will do that for the people that are still living. And that's why we call it honoring yesterday's heroes. Okay? Next one. Well, there's a lot of veterans in here. A lot of veterans that aren't necessarily World War II, but they're Vietnam era and probably earlier than that. So Kelly and I have put a little tribute, not only to the vets that we take, but for every veteran that served. And I want to show this for you for a couple seconds, a couple minutes, please. That's what we're about. That's not. Every trip is unique. Every time we go, something unique will happen. But the background of this, I was doing a trip out of Wausau, Wisconsin a few years ago, and this high school choir was dressed in the World War II garb, and towards the end, and there was a lot of us that were Vietnam vets there, and they came out and started singing this, and they scattered around the tables, like we had 500 people there, and put their hands on the vets. And I just loved that song. I said, we got to do something for our vets. And so I talked to the choir director and gave me authorization to use that, and using our local ones and stuff. That one picture you saw with the guy and the Navy guy kissing the girl in Times Square, and then the other one. Then the one right after that, we saw the guy kissing, it was black and white. That's Louis Zapparini. If you know the book for Unbroken. So Louis unfortunately passed away this year, and there's a movie coming out about him that I would strongly, if you haven't read the book on Unbroken, the movie is going to be coming out on Christmas Day this year, talking about Louis' experiences. It's really, really amazing what he did. So again, this is who we are. We're taking veterans, World War II, Korea, and the Vietnam vets. The different ways that people could help, or we have volunteers just to come out and join us. We can't do it without the volunteers. Not only here in Dayton, but through the different cities. We'll fly honor flights into, as I mentioned, BWI and Reagan, and also Dulles. So we go into all three different ones depending on where we're coming from across the United States. But here, your Dayton organization is going to be flying into Reagan. And then the Guardians, as I said, sign up. We've got a long list of Guardians that are paying their own way. The price to take a World War II vet today is $335. When we first started, it was around $250, but now because of the airline fares primarily and the plush buses that we take, it's about $335. So the Guardians are paying their own way on every one of these trips. And once they go, they want to go again, And then donations. And this is where you individuals are putting a team together to help us out. And we started this several years ago and said if someone could raise $10,000, then geez, doggone it, we're going to call it whatever it is, honor flight. And so hopefully next year we'll have the Thrivent honor flight up on a logo up there, and then two Guardians would be coming out of that group to assist us during that day to see what it's really like. So on behalf of Kelly, our rose among two thorns, Larry and myself, we want to thank you for the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you, and we'd be happy to answer any questions afterwards. Larry can talk to you about the Honoring Yesterday's Heroes program. And I just want to say in advance, we all thank you for this endeavor that you're going on. And it's a journey, but can you imagine what it's going to do for vets down there? You saw some of the faces of some of these individuals. It's a life-changing event when these individuals go on this trip. And we can't do it without individuals like yourselves. You know, I mentioned about Kelly and her school and other individuals. When we first started, it was VFWs and American Legions, things like that, because we're small. But in order to continue doing these, this charter is costing us over $40,000. So in order to do that, but the thing is with the charters, we can take more vets at one time. You know, World War II vets in 2007, when the population of that pool was a fairly decent size, we were losing them at 1,200 a day. Now that pool has shrunk because of all those that were lost. Probably less than 1.5 million out of the 16 are left. So that pool is a lot smaller. So the number that are dying today in World War II is between 800 and 1,000 probably. And the Korean vets are just a few years behind them. And then the Vietnam vets are a little bit behind them. So on behalf of that, that song was for all the veterans out there. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and God bless you all. Thank you.